Welcome to Leadership Talk. I'm your host, Lars Födisch. And today we will talk about the future of work and the impact of work from home and technology. And our guest is nobody else than André Mangels, 20 years experience in recruitment and working with people. Welcome to Leadership Talks.
Thanks for the invitation. Thanks, Lars.
So let's just jump directly into it. Everybody knows that with the pandemic, working culture has changed dramatically. Do you think that today more people in Vietnam prefer working from home than before? Or is it the hybrid model? Or what's the status quo and where is it going?
Yes, it's a pretty good question. And maybe it's a very fluid one, meaning maybe in 6 months or 12 months, my answer will be slightly different. And maybe about a half year ago, it would have been different too. So currently, what we see, as you know, we're in a headhunting firm, or a big part of our business, headhunting. When we speak to candidates, among the top 3 reasons why joining a new company or why considering a new job is one of them is, does this company offer any kind of hybrid work or not? In a year, 2 years ago, or before COVID, this was never one of the top 3. It was never even mentioned because maybe it was not an option either. So clearly, from a candidate perspective, from an employee perspective, yes, it's one of the highest in demand.
So do you also see people purposely leaving jobs because they're asked back to the office?
I think at least actively looking for opportunities when maybe the company, like you said, has changed now their policy to back, everyone needs to be back to the office. Yes, this can definitely be a reason why candidates actively looking for an opportunity out there. Yes.
One thing is what people want. One thing is what bosses want. The other one is what works. So how does it change the working culture? During the pandemic, we didn't have a chance. Now, hopefully, we have a more conscious approach.
Yes. So before maybe I answer what works, maybe on the contrary, bosses or organizations, a lot of them in Vietnam have moved back to the traditional model, everyone being back in the office. So if you compare this to global trends, I mean, at least latest numbers I've seen, maybe 70–80% of organizations globally have any kind of or a certain kind of hybrid work. In Vietnam, it's roughly 30%. So it's much lower. So the question is, why? Why companies in Vietnam don't offer this yet? I don't have the perfect answer to it, but I believe there's some cultural differences. One is maybe not believing you have full control over your employees when they're working from home. Another one is maybe trust needs to develop first that this works, because it's something new. So clearly there is a difference between what companies currently offering and what candidates are looking for. If you ask me whether it works, I think it works very well. But if you ask some of our clients, they will tell you maybe the contrary. They will say, no, we have moved back to the old traditional model because we have seen drop in efficiency, productivity. So I think it's a mixed feedback. I don't know whether there's enough research already done, whether it depends on the industry, the company culture. There are many reasons behind, I reckon.
So when you have those discussions with your clients and other industry leaders, what do you hear about? What are the measures or ways to ensure efficiencies, even if you're not looking who's in the office every day?
Yeah, I think there are a few ways. Like some have, for example, arranged every morning a certain call, 8:30 a.m. You have to go on a call, but then the question is, after the call, do people continue, as you would most likely ask me, or not? Or certain KPIs. They have to do, I don't know, certain calls a day, certain meetings, if it's sales professionals, and maybe at the end of a day or midweek or end of the week, you will check on the KPIs. Have they happened? Didn't they happen? I think these are some of the measurements. What I see other companies do, and we do as well, we try to have, for example, town halls or certain engagement events where we kind of encourage people to come back to the office to spend quality time. But for other things where you don't need to be in the office because you have to do your administrative work or check many emails, whatever, we leave and give you the flexibility. I think that's a model I see most companies who use hybrid work, for them this works well.
So then it's a little bit like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you first implement hybrid and then KPIs, or should be KPIs there first and then you look at a different model?
No, it's very true, but I reckon most companies have KPIs in place, but the question might be, how have they monitored it before, or was it in a rigid way monitored or not? At least I have myself, for example, given some webinars and seminars on this topic, on hybrid work, how to best implement, and I've shared a little bit of lesson learned. I think one main thing is reflect and look at yourself as a leader first. Are you pro hybrid work, or do you have concerns? Are you by quoting, are you more on Elon Musk's side or on someone who is believing in it? So I think because you yourself will influence and drive this topic. And of course, then as well, look at the company culture. What is the view on your leaders? For example, we did a survey in the beginning, and it was interesting to see a lot of our senior leaders or people who are in management positions were not too open to the idea of hybrid work, because maybe it makes their job, or they at least perceive it as making it tougher. How do you keep your people engaged? How you retain your people, and so on. But a lot of employees, especially younger ones, all were in favor. Said hybrid work, yeah, I love to. This is the future. We're looking for an employee who's offering this. So I think this is the first step. Maybe understand yourself a little better and your leadership team before you start implementing whatever you're implementing.
Do you think there's also that big bias of, when I was a junior, I had to go to the office. I want to see my people instead of thinking what actually works for them. And as a boss, as you know, you're most likely the one who would spend the least time in the office anyway.
Yes, no, you're right. Maybe you believe, look, what I have done, I have been through this tough times, and now I expect it from my employees too, yes.
You touched on the topic of you do more town halls, right? Because it's a very different thing about having that water cooler talk or at the coffee machine to quickly catch up. That normally goes away when you're at home. What can you recommend to keep that culture component and that informal conversation going when you're just in front of your screen, far away from a common physical building?
So we tried different ways. One is maybe during COVID time, you had no choice anyways, to make online conversations more engaging via any tech tools you can do. But we noticed there's only as much or so much you can do in that area. So we kind of say, okay, when you work from home, then take advantage of what you do at home. Either you have a quiet place, you can focus, or whatever it is. But then when you're at work, we want to make sure you're engaged and you keep the engagement. So that's right now what we do. So not necessarily trying to make the from home more engaging, but make the time you're in the office have high level of engagement. So for example, we do town halls, but we do as well team bonding events. Then again, we encourage everyone to come, or we do some certain classes together. So whenever we come to the office, it should be engaging, or you should have your weekly team meetings, for example, not via maybe Teams. You should have them in face-to-face. But then you let your people work 2-3 days from home.
So technology has forced us, or at the same time enabled us to do that. Where do you see that technology can even further help us to work anywhere in the world? And where do you see also the lines of that's what technology can do, but then we need that face-to-face?
Yes. And maybe to add on, I recently shared this during a presentation as well, what technology brings to the table. There's as well a little bit of a drawback to it, especially for the younger talents who kind of lost 2 years of their life when they were in lockdown. A lot of them have maybe, not only in Vietnam in general, but in Vietnam we can see as well, have weaker social or soft skills. Because all the communication was in a way on a 2D platform. So they're maybe lacking a little bit of body language, facial expression, face-to-face communication. So that's one area where a lot of companies right now are lacking behind and working on and trying to develop this. And of course, again, if you're pro or against hybrid work, there are a lot of people would say that's why we want our people back in the office, because we want them to train this area.
One big tech topic is, of course, AI. Some people say, oh, it makes my day more productive because I can think and less do.
Yes.
Others think, oh, AI will take my job away. What's your take? Where's the reality and where don't we know?
Yes. I think to a certain extent both. Meaning if you have, I don't want to advocate in ChatGPT or others, but surely they make your life, if you use it in the right way, surely you will be more productive. As a recruitment consultant, for example, you can use it to write a job description or certain advertisements, job posts. Surely AI can help you there. At the same time, I don't think it will immediately replace all of us, but maybe in certain industry faster than others. For example, if I look in Vietnam, I don't think it will so quickly replace, let's say, our Grab drivers and so on, because I don't think autonomous driving is coming so soon. So, but I saw a lot of fear there that it will, yes, it will come, but I think the time frame is still, it will still take a couple of more years until it really happens.
Do you believe that forced and accelerated tech adoption adds to the digital divide? So, juniors that are grown, that grew up with mobile phones and now more technology in the workforce, and the other people that are most likely in their more silver years of the career,
yes,
and they don't want, they're scared. How do you recommend also that companies deal with those realities and fears?
It's a very good question. I believe they can kind of complement each other. So meaning, surely, in Vietnam, senior is not somebody who is 50 or 60 years old. Most likely, if you are mid-30 to 40, you're already quite senior in Vietnam, as we have a very, very young workforce. So I'm surely the oldest in the organization already, so you can see we have a very, very young workforce. But I believe both can kind of complement, support each other, where, for example, mentioned tech-savvy, the younger generation, sure. Maybe, I don't want to be too stereotypical because we have as well some senior ones who are very, very tech savvy. But let's say there's a tendency there might be less. But in tendency, there might be stronger in all the soft skills, social skills. And we see there's a little bit of a lacking behind for some of the younger generation because they spend a lot of time with technology on their mobile phone, on the laptop, on the iPad, whatever, and maybe not so much in face-to-face conversations and so on. So therefore, there can be a good complementary environment you can build.
So do you think something will come back that was a reality in Western societies in the early part of last century, where you have kind of arranged social mixers to, just learn how to deal with people in real life?
Could be, yes. That you kind of, like you said, or like what is called, you create internships in a way for senior people.
Yeah, both ways, right?
Yes.
So that you learn from each other more.
When you do, what do you call it? What's the term? Coaching, but vice versa coaching, meaning you get coached by a young person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Reminds me a little bit of that Robert De Niro movie, The Intern.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Where you get actually coached by, someone much younger than you.
So as the job market, or basically the industry has changed so quickly, accelerated with technology, the pandemic, work from home, hybrid models, how does it also change how you have to deal with people's careers? Do people expect the same, or is it also like, oh, by default, I have a more patchwork approach, or I want to be just safe and sound? Do you see different trends there?
If you maybe, sometimes we refer like to the gig economy, or people take short-term jobs and so on. I still don't see it as much in Vietnam, or maybe some other Asian countries, maybe as we see it in Europe or Western Hemisphere. Maybe, again, there's a little bit of cultural difference. If you have a permanent role, it's judged more from a status, and it means more. If you tell your parents you have a permanent role with a bigger MNC or well-known company, this is normally what a lot of people are aiming for. But for the younger generations, and especially as an entry level, yes, there's openness to it. But if you're more on a senior level, there's less openness to having short-term gigs or doing consulting roles and so on. It's not, maybe, like I said, from a cultural perspective, not there yet. I believe it will be, but if I compare, yes, there's not a sizable market yet.
Let's look at employers. Have the requirements and maybe also the openness of employers in Vietnam changed in terms of, you have to have that one line kind of career path, then you are fit, or we actually want a little bit more of a diverse hire because it adds new perspectives and different ideas, because we can't solve tomorrow's problems with yesterday's solutions kind of thing.
Yes. I think depends a little bit on the role. Certain roles, let's say in digital marketing or new trends, surely they want very particular skill sets, hard skills they're looking for, and that's why they're engaging a headhunting firm like us. Maybe for some other roles where, like you said, either they want to bring in some new ideas or have a little bit more creativity, yes, that might be a little bit more open to a wider pool. Sometimes I would say what certain companies do is they will maybe search themselves first, cast the net wider, see what is available. But once they decide to work with a headhunting firm, it gets normally quite targeted. That's as well why they pay us for the service to find them what they really look for.
Ideal candidate.
An ideal candidate. So I would say in general, I believe companies are open, like you said, to candidates who don't fully fit, but most likely they not will use a headhunting firm for it. They will use it through their own search resources they're having on hand.
The Vietnamese economy is maturing, is changing, so that also means there are different demands of workforce. Do you think that these changes are also done fast enough on what kind of new skills need to be brought to the economy? Is the government doing certain initiatives that you, for example, are supporting or working with in terms of we need digital skills, we need this skills, we need that, instead of just, we needed 50,000 of those 10 years ago, now we need 2 of these, but 48 of that?
Yes. I think the government is very actively trying, or not only trying, identifying which are the industries and which are the functions that are growing quickly, and works, for example, closely together with us. We have very close relationship with the government. We're working as well with the Ministry of Labor, so-called MOLISA. So we are very active in this. But to be fair as well to the government, the demand and the speed of growth in Vietnam is just very difficult to match. Mm-hmm. So therefore, there's still certain areas where, not still certain, many areas where the demand is higher than the supply. And certain ways you can solve it. Either you can see for certain areas we have a lot of foreign talents, or we hire some talents who have potential and who can grow in these roles. But I think they're clearly identified, we're pushing, we're supporting, working closely together with universities, colleges, and so on. But it's seen, at least for the last few years, the growth of Vietnam, and is of course very well known in terms of attracting a lot of foreign direct investment. So it's not easy to match these demands.
Of course, if you're running an industrial park and manufacturing, you need more blue-collar laborers at the line. Yes. But especially if you have white-collar jobs, bringing back to the idea of remote working, if you don't have them to move to Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh, but you could basically conquer all of Vietnam as your future workforce, yes. Isn't that the kind of maybe one of those secret weapons that companies are or are not doing enough?
Or it maybe comes back to the beginning where I said hybrid work, remote work is maybe only 30% of the organizations really using it. I know there are a good number of companies who are right now opening a bigger, sizable business in Da Nang, in the middle. Has, of course, as well an attractive environment in terms of beautiful beach and so on. So it attracts definitely a fair amount of talent. A lot of them work remotely. They work maybe for overseas clients or projects countrywide. Yes, but it's maybe a smaller part of what we see entirely. So sure, I believe this remote work model, not only for Vietnam, but globally is very, very attractive. As long as we, as you asked in the beginning, how we get it right, that this works. As long as it works, yes, this will be the future.
As you speak with so many business leaders, companies, and candidates as a company, not you just personally, maybe do you have some tips about people that are entering the workforce now or just about to What kind of skills should they focus on to really build a strong foundation that will last and it's not just based on concepts of the past?
I think it's developing surely over the years, but I think depending on the industries, there's still a generic trend. And in Vietnam, most likely number one is still very strong communication skills, and especially as well in English, not only in Vietnamese, but as well in English. So that's really the first kind of gate opener. And that's pretty much related to the second topic. What they're looking for is if this person, let's say either is a fresh grad or is somebody who has now, let's say 1 or 2 years of experience, they're looking for someone who has some first experience, what it means to work for an international company. Of course, some maybe go the career path working for local companies, but let's say people try to aspire working for a bigger MNC in Vietnam, then this experience you need to kind of step by step develop. Because very often when we speak to our clients or bigger MNCs, but interesting as well, local larger players, they will as well say, has this person experience working for, let's say, an international team or a multicultural team, or maybe has this person been reporting to a foreign manager? That's really what is a very, very high demand requirement. And therefore, some candidates, I just recently shared it as well, who then have some overseas, maybe working, living, or study experience in super high demand. They're kind of called like category number one right now. It's not born overseas and then move to Vietnam maybe at the age of 20. No, they want in a way a Vietnamese who's familiar with the Vietnamese culture, and should become a Westerner by no means, but you should as well very well understand both cultures well. What does it mean to work maybe in a more international setting? Maybe I give one example. Many people might be familiar with the term power distance. Power distance is I'm as a, let's say, low-level worker, how far do I see my authority, my power away from the general manager? And in Vietnam, based on statistics, facts, this power distance quite far, quite large. In comparison to a Western environment, most Western companies, the power distance perceived smaller because managers empower their people. They want to have kind of everyone equal, to a certain extent equal. So therefore, the power distance is different. What does it mean at work? For example, as a manager, you will say, can you please share your opinion with me? I think we should do this, but I'm happy to hear your opinions. And if nobody speaks up in a Western context, this would mean, I'm not sure I have the right talents because they are not as well participating and so on. In an Asian context, maybe Vietnamese more used to not speaking up, rather showing respect and agreeing with a decision because you are maybe, when you're younger, you should respect and agree with your grandparents. And when you then come to school, to a certain extent, you should respect and agree with your teacher. So therefore, you're taught in a different way. So sometimes we see Vietnamese might be not, for example, considered for the next promotion, but maybe a bit more outspoken Westerner might be. But maybe in reality, maybe the Vietnamese was a stronger performer, but wasn't as vocal as the counterpart. So that's, for example, some of the things we train and we advise younger talents, but that's as well what MNCs are looking for. They're looking for people who know, okay, now I'm supposed to speak up. Now I'm supposed to share my opinion. I'm supposed to contribute. Not I should just ask for advice. I should as well suggest. Let's say I would say we could do this. Dear manager, would you agree or you have other advice? Not please tell me what to do. There's a difference in cultural differences.
What would that then mean? We looked at people starting their career. What would that mean for employers to attract the best talent?
Yes.
And I want to use exactly your example. So somebody wants to build a career in an international company and has that tendency to speak up, ask questions. Could it also backfire if they're coming into a more traditional Vietnamese company and they're seen like, who's that guy who doesn't show respect?
Yes, vice versa. Fully agree. So that's why I mean understanding well enough the cultural differences. So if you might join a more traditional Vietnamese company, this new learned behavior, which you maybe got in an MNC environment, as exactly as I said, might backfire for you. So it might not be as well the right choice unless you really aspire working there, but then you might have to change your approach of working. So for a company, what does it mean? I think first of all, you need to have a very clear employer branding. What do you stand for? Are you standing for, like you said, a more international Western environment, or are you more have other value systems? So I think that's one. And to add on a little bit, what we've seen now in the past, maybe it was about your office and where your office is and how your office looks like. All this is still important, yes. And maybe you have something like an open office day and invite people. I think all this is still valid, but what has become more and more important is your entire social media or digital presence. Because all the younger generation check this out a lot more than gonna go to your office. And maybe to show a trend, the first round of interview very often is now digital. It's via Teams, 2D platforms only. Second, third round might be then face-to-face. So meaning candidate will actually not even go to your office and experience the culture and so on in the first place. So as an organization, you need to have a very strong digital messaging, maybe storytelling, maybe engage on LinkedIn, on Facebook, maybe even TikTok nowadays. So there are many platforms you might have to use to strong website, definitely. So many ways how you have to position yourself.
Excellent. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So many great insights. Thank you very much, Andre. That was our episode on the future of work with a lot of insights about what employers should look into, what people starting their careers should look into, and of course, how work from home, hybrid has been adapted, has been pulled back, and how it might continue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lars. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.